Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV Around the World News. This is Zareen Rahman with top stories. First, the headlines. Obama, special relationship with UK will endure. Stonewall to become US gay rights monument, Obama. 20 people die in West Virginia floods. European Union referendum. Moody's cut UK's credit outlook to negative. 7 killed in fire after Uttara elevator cable snaps. Euro 2016, Wales and Northern Ireland set for historical last 16 tie in Paris. Here's now the details. President Obama has said the special relationship between the United States and Britain will endure in the aftermath of the UK's exit from European Union. Speaking to an audience in Stanford University, he said, yesterday's vote speaks to the ongoing changes and challenges that are raised by globalization.
A few hours ago, I spoke with Prime Minister David Cameron. David has been an outstanding friend and partner on the global stage, and based on our conversation, I'm confident that the UK is committed to an orderly transition out of the EU. We agreed that our economic and financial teams will remain in close contact as we stay focused on ensuring economic growth and financial stability. I then spoke to Chancellor Merkel of Germany, and we agreed that the United States and our European allies will work closely together in the weeks and months ahead. I do think that yesterday's vote speaks to the ongoing changes and challenges that are raised by globalization. But while the UK's relationship with the EU will change, One thing that will not change is the special relationship that exists between our two nations. That will endure. The EU will remain one of our indispensable partners. Our NATO alliance will remain a cornerstone of global security, and in a few weeks we'll be meeting in Warsaw for the NATO summit. And our shared values, including our commitment to democracy and pluralism and opportunity for all people in a globalized world, that will continue to unite all of us. And that is the work that brings us here today.
US President Barack Obama named the Stonewall Bar as the first national monument to gay rights. The Stonewall National Monument will cover 7.7 acres of land, including the nearby Christopher Park. Gay marriage was legalized nationwide last year after bitter legal battles. I believe our national park should reflect the full story of our country, the richness and diversity and uniquely American spirit that has always defined us, Mr. Obama said in a video announcing the creation of the monument. That we are stronger together, that out of many we are one. The video will be played on the billboards in Times Square on Saturday, the White House said in a statement. At the time of the Stonewall riots in July 1969, police said they acted to enforce a law that made it illegal to sell alcoholic drinks to homosexuals. Since then, the riots, widely known as the Stonewall Uprising, the U.S. has enacted a number of anti-discrimination bills, including allowing gays and lesbians to serve openly in the U.S. Armed Forces. Last year, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. Heavy storms and flooding have caused widespread damage throughout the state, said Governor Earl Ray Tomblin. A state of emergency was declared in 44 of the state's 55 counties. Rescue efforts were underway for about 500 people trapped in a shopping center, while officials continued to search for others stranded in devastated areas. The flooding has destroyed more than 100 homes and knocked out power for thousands after a storm system dumped 9 inches of rain on parts of the state. The governor said 200 National Guard soldiers were carrying out search and rescue efforts as well as health and welfare checks in 8 counties across the state. A church pastor told an 8-year-old boy slipped, fell into a creek and was swept away. The boy's mother attempted to save him but lost her grip on the child, according to Harry Croft, pastor at Marvin Church of the Nazarene at Wheeling. The child's body was found about a half-mile from where the family lives. The body of a 4-year-old boy was also recovered a day after the child slipped into a creek swollen with flood waters. Ravenswood Fire Department official Bob Bibby said the toddler was with his grandfather when he fell into the water in Jackson County. The grandfather jumped into the creek to try and save the boy, but was overcome by the rushing water. Governor Tomblin called the flooding among the worst in a century for some parts of the state. The two have fought for the Democratic nomination, which former Secretary of State Mrs. Clinton won this month. Mr. Sanders, a self-described socialist, told he would do everything in his power to defeat the likely Republican nominee Donald Trump. But he stopped short of saying he would end his campaign. He said his job now was to fight for the strongest possible platform at the party's convention in July, including a higher minimum wage. But Sanders dismissed the idea that he should withdraw from the race. Why would I want to do that when I want to fight to make sure that we have the best platform that we possibly can, that we win the most delegates that we can, the Vermont senator said. Moody has said the result would herald a prolonged period of uncertainty. Meanwhile, PM David Cameron is under pressure to speed up divorce talks with the EU after Brussels said exit negotiations should start immediately. EU head Jean-Claude Juncker said it was not an amicable divorce, but it was not a tight love affair anyway. Moody has said the referendum result would have negative implications for the country's medium-term growth outlook, and it lowered the UK's long-term issuer and debt ratings to negative from stable. It added, in Moody's view, the negative effect from lower economic growth will outweigh the fiscal savings from the UK no longer having to contribute to the EU budget. It also said the UK had one of the largest budget deficits among advanced economies. The financial assessment came after the UK voted to leave the EU, and a defeated Mr. Cameron said he would step down as leader by autumn. Pro-Leave MP Boris Johnson is tipped as favoured to replace him. Mr. Cameron had urged the country to vote Remain in Thursday's referendum but was defeated by 52% to 48% despite London, Scotland and Northern Ireland backing staying in. On Friday morning, he stood outside 10 Downing Street alongside his wife Samantha to announce he would remain in place for the short term and then hand over to a new Prime Minister by the Conservative Conference in October. He said he would attempt to steady the ship over the coming weeks and months, but that it would be for the new Prime Minister to carry out negotiations with the EU and invoke Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, which would give the UK 2 years to negotiate its withdrawals. Natasha Bouchard said Paris must act after Thursday's referendum in which the UK voted to leave the EU. The British must take the consequences of their choice, she said on Friday. Under the 2003 Toolkit deal, Britain can carry out check-in calais to stop migrants trying to get to Britain. Ms. Bouchard said, "We are in a strong position to push to press this request for a review, and we are asking the President Francois Hollande to bring his weight. We must put everything on the table, and there must be an element of division, of sharing." Meanwhile, Xavier Bertrand, the president of Hauts-de-France region where Calais is located, said, "The English wanted to take back their freedom, they must take back their border." The French authorities had warned before the referendum that a vote for leaving the EU could see a camp with thousands of migrants being moved from Calais to British soil. The British authorities have made no public comments on the issue. In February, clashes broke out as French demolition teams dismantled huts in part of Calais migrant camp known as the Jungle. The French government plans to relocate migrants to reception centers. Those living in the camp, mainly from the Middle East, Afghanistan and Africa, hope to cross the channel, often using people traffickers to try to enter illegally. Kyiv region governor Nikita Belykh was held in a Moscow restaurant. Investigators posted a picture which purports to show the governor of the central region at a table with cash from a bribe. Mr. Belykh has been a Kremlin critic, but the investigators say there is no political subtext to the case. On Friday, the Russian Investigative Committee published a photograph on its website saying it showed Mr. Belykh and piles of 100-euro notes laid out before him. They say he is suspected of accepting the money personally and through an intermediary in return for protecting dodgy investment business in the region. Mr. Belykh, who once led the opposition Union of Right Forces, has made no public comment on the issue. SKR spokesman Vladimir Markin pointed out that, anticipating hysteria from Mr. Belykh's supporters, there was no political background to his arrest. Mr. Belykh becomes the third Russian governor to be arrested on suspicion of corruption in just over a year. End of days for junk house of Bondi Beach. South African court refuses Juma appeal request in arms case. China blow to India's nuclear suppliers group hopes. Privacy shield, White House makes EU spying promise. Brexit, Asian shares fall sharply as UK votes to leave European Union. Official news agency Xinhua reports that the tornado, accompanied by torrential rain and hailstorms, hit the province of Jiangsu on Thursday afternoon. Homes in Yancheng City were flattened, it adds. Floods in parts of southern China killed 22 people earlier this week. Video from the scene of the tornado shows injured children being transported on the backs of mopeds, overturned vehicles, snapped trees and street light poles, and toppled electricity pylons. Many parts of China have been hit by torrential rains this week. The floods in southern China displaced nearly 200,000 people, state media said. Direct economic losses from the floods are estimated to be $410 million. China's Vice Premier Wang Yang said that China faces volatile weather conditions as a result of the influence of El Nino on weather patterns. Thousands pays their respects throwing rose petals over an ambulance carrying his coffin. He was killed on Wednesday in an attack claimed by the Taliban. Sabri performed Qawwali, devotional music from the Sufi tradition and Islamic practice opposed by extremists. He will be laid to rest in Paposhnagar graveyard next to his father, Qawwali legend Ghulam Farid Sabri. Ahead of his funeral, mourners gathered outside his home in Karachi. People from all walks of life, including sportsmen, actors and singers, showed up to pay their final respects. Qawwali music is the words of Sufi saints set to music, which aims to bring listeners into a trance-like state that helps them establish a close link with God. The spiritual songs are a lyrical expression of love with a divine being, kept in time to the beat of Eastern musical instruments such as the tabla, drums and harmonium. The devotional music, which dates back several centuries, is also known as the music of the shrines and has a special place in the indigenous Islamic faith of the Indian subcontinent. They are a reminder that behind sunny Australian facades, there lies a darker space where people who have fallen through the cracks reside. The Bobolas family, Mary and daughters Elena and Liana, are no ordinary residents. For more than 2 decades, they have been engaged in an ongoing battle with the local Waverley Council and nearby neighbours. At issue is the extraordinary amount of junk at their property, just an 8-minute stroll from Bondi Beach. In a suburb of skyrocketing property prices, the Bunara Avenue house, bought for $18,500 in 1970, has long been piled high with the family's collected items. Plastic bottles, cardboard boxes, children's toys, car hubcaps, milk crates, mattresses, assorted rubbish, even old surfboards, you name it. There were no merits in the argument requesting an appeal, it ruled. In April, the court said a 2009 decision to drop the 783 charges against Mr. Zuma was irrational. He has always denied taking bribes over the arms deal. National Director of Public Prosecutions Sean Abrahams had asked the court for permission to appeal against the earlier ruling, saying prosecutors should be able to exercise discretion over whether an investigation should continue. Rejecting the request, High Court Judge Aubrey Ledwaba said, "We seriously considered whether the appeal would have reasonable prospects of success and came to the conclusion that there are no merits in the arguments." The ruling is a blow to Mr. Zuma's efforts to avoid standing trial, reports the BBC's Milton Nikosi from Johannesburg. The President can still take the case to the Supreme Court of Appeal, but it is difficult to see it overturning the unanimous ruling of the High Court, our correspondent says. Mr. Zuma's final option would be to ask the Constitutional Court to throw out the case. The plenary of the NSG ended on Friday without a decision on India's membership. China said India should not become a member until it signs the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, a key requirement for all NSG members. The NSG sets global rules for international trade in nuclear energy technology. In a statement following the end of the plenary session, the group confirmed that India's application had been discussed. Participating governments reiterated their firm support for the full, complete and effective implementation of the NPT as a cornerstone of the international non-proliferation regime. The statement read, India needed a unanimous vote in the 48-member group to become a member, but Beijing took the position that the rules should not be bent for India. Applicant countries must be signatories of the NPT. This is a pillar, not something that China said. It is universally recognized by the international community. The Reuters news agency quoted Wang Kun, the head of the Arms Control Department in China's Foreign Ministry, as saying, China was always the main opponent to India's US-backed bid to become an NSG member despite hectic diplomatic discussions between Delhi and Beijing. US President Barack Obama had publicly endorsed India's candidacy during his meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier this month and also urged other NSG members to consider it favorably. India's main opposition Congress Party has referred to the development as an embarrassment to the country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi needs to realize that diplomacy needs depth and seriousness and not public tamasha, a party spokesman said. Prime Minister and also ruling Army League President Sheikh Hasina categorically said her party has been working for the betterment of Bengali nation since inception. She made the comment at a meeting on the occasion of the party's 67th founding anniversary at Bangabandhu International Conference Center in City on Thursday afternoon. The organization struggled for the country's independence. It brought all the major achievements for the nation. Now, we have reduced poverty rate in the country and working for people's economic emancipation. Paying tribute to the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the PM said that her government has been working since assuming power to materialize the unfulfilled dreams of Bangabandhu in establishing the nation developed. Hasina also appreciated the role and contribution of the party activists for making the organization stronger day by day. On this day in 1949, Army League was founded at Dhaka's historic Rose Garden with Maulana Bhashani as its president, Shamsul Haq as general secretary and Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman as joint secretary. The death toll rose to 7 as fire broke out after cables of a capsule lift of 16-story tropical Alauddin Tower shopping complex snapped in Uttara sector in City. Besides, 24 others, including 2 members of a family, were injured in the incident that took place around 6:30 p.m. on Friday. Earlier on Friday night, Deputy Commissioner of Uttar Division of Dhaka Metropolitan Police, Bidhan Tripura, confirmed about death of 6. Later, the death toll reached to 7 as AGM of Tropical Homes Limited, Mahmudul Hassan, succumbed to his injuries early Saturday, June 25th. Police and fire service sources told Bangla News that fire broke out immediately after cables of the lift snapped and fell upon the people who joined an iftar party here. DMC burn unit physician Partha Paul told Bangla News that Mahmudul Hassan sustained 80% burn injuries, while his daughter Menaz Hassan Maisha sustained 44% and 8-month-old son Muttaqin Hassan sustained 23% burning injuries. Fire Service and Civil Defense DG Brigadier General Ali Ahmed Khan told that they brought the blaze under control after an hour. Viewers, now the Millennium Information and Technology News. The agreement is designed to replace the Safe Harbor Pact, which the EU Court of Justice ruled invalid in 2015. One key change is a commitment from the White House regarding bulk collection of data sent from the EU to the United States. The UK's Information Commissioner said a post-Brexit UK may have to adopt EU data protection rules to trade with it. If approved by the EU member states, the pact could take effect in July. The European Union United States Privacy Shield is designed to make it easy for organizations to transfer data across the Atlantic. However, in May, the European Data Protection Supervisor said the Privacy Shield agreement needed to provide adequate protection against indiscriminate surveillance and obligations on oversight, transparency, redress, and data protection rights. A spokesman for the European Commission said this new framework for transatlantic data flows protects the fundamental rights and Europeans and ensures legal certainty for businesses. The overwhelming majority of the searches came from Northern Ireland.
We have in excess of 200.
The search giant also reported more searches for what happens if we leave the EU around midnight on 23rd June and for other phrases such as British Independence Day and Norway EU. One expert cautioned that the data does not reveal actual volumes of searches. On the financial implications, Google Trends said it had recorded the highest ever search interest in sterling. During the early hours of the morning, the pound fell by more than 10% to a level not seen since 1985, before slightly rebounding.
Irish passport application and Irish citizenship.
Here's now the Millennium Business News. After initial gains, Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 closed 7.9% down at 14,952.02 points, the biggest one-day fall since the 2011 tsunami. The UK voted by 52% to 48% to leave the European Union after 43 years in a historic referendum. Analysts said the investor sentiment is rattled by the looming uncertainty on markets around the globe. The British pound at one point hit its lowest level since 1985. The Japanese yen has surged to 102.4 to the US dollar as investors now see the currency as a safe haven. Tokyo has for years been trying to keep the yen low as any surge in the currency hurts the country's exporters. The London Blue Chip Index fell 7% in early trading to just over 5,800 points but ended the day 3.15% lower at 6,138. New York and European markets all suffered even bigger falls, with the Dow Jones posting its biggest one-day slide in almost 5 years. Sterling also plunged, falling more than 8% against the dollar and 6% against the euro. Credit rating agency Moody's cut the UK's outlook from stable to negative on Friday night, saying the Brexit vote could result in weaker economic growth. Wall Street fell sharply in late trading, with the Dow plunging more than 600 points or 3.4% to close at 17,400 points. In London, the FTSE 250, which mostly comprises companies that trade in the UK, shed 7.2% to close at 16,088 points. Financial services group Aldermore was the biggest faller on the 250, down 32%, with house builder Crest Nicholson closing 26% lower. House builders were also the three biggest fallers on the FTSE 100, with Taylor Wimpey suffering a 29% slide. However, the FTSE 100 index still ended this week higher than it started at 6,021 points. Gold miner Randgold jumped 14%, while consumer-facing companies including GlaxoSmithKline, Unilever and Diageo all rose more than 3%. The London market regained some poise after the Bank of England pledged to intervene to help shore up the markets. Here's now the Millennium Sports News. this is the first time two home nations have met in the knockout stages of a major tournament. Wales finished above England to win Group B, with Northern Ireland qualifying from Group C as one of the biggest third-place teams. Thousands of Wales and Northern Ireland fans are expected in Paris. It is one off game now and we'll go into thinking we can get a victory, said Northern Ireland striker Kyle Lafferty. Wales manager Chris Coleman said it will be about who handles that spotlight the best, who's capable of performing under that pressure and tension. There is further home nation's interest in the match as England's Martin Atkinson will be the referee. The pair shared an England record ODI partnership as a target of 255 was chased with 95 balls to spare in front of a raucous Edgbaston crowd.
Bowls down the track, comes Roy and smashes him over the top.
Some excellent fielding and bowling, particularly from Adil Rashid to 134, had restricted Sri Lanka to 254 by 7. After a thrilling tie on Tuesday, England lead the 5-match series 1-0. The home side also taken an unassailable 13-3 lead in the inaugural Super Series, with 6 points awarded across all 3 formats. Sri Lanka, who posted an inadequate total on a superb batting surface, are still looking for their first victory over England on this tour. Viewers, let's have a look at Millennium TV Around the World News Recap. First, the headlines. Obama, special relationship with UK will endure. Stonewall to become US gay rights monument, Obama. 20 people die in West Virginia floods. European Union referendum. Moody's cut UK's credit outlook to negative. 7 killed in fire after Uttara elevator cable snaps. Euro 2016, Wales and Northern Ireland set for historical last 16 tie in Paris. You're up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log in to www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you and stay with Millennium TV. Allah Hafiz.